Non-stop rock talk with Tyson Bryden. Welcome to Nonstop Rock Talk. This is your host, Tyson Bryden. Today, I'm very happy to welcome back for part 2, Andy Curran. Andy, welcome again. How's it going?
Thank you for having me back, Tyson. It's going good. You got my check in the mail for having me on.
I did.
Back on twice. Okay, good. Excellent.
Thank you very much. It didn't bounce either.
we ran out of time, or my laptop died, or the reset, or something happened where we were like, wait a sec. You were like, wait a sec, I haven't finished yet. So no, I'm happy to continue, bro.
Well, I'm glad you're back. And like we did last time, I want to start with hockey. Like I said before, I mean, this is one of your passions, and I like to talk about sports on the show. So any musician that comes on that is into sports, I like to talk about it. So, I kind of went in my archives of stuff that I have, and I'm just in the process of moving, as you know. So I was in my closet and I pulled out this, and we're only in audio, so the people at home can't really see this, but I pulled out this old O-Pee-Chee locker box from the 80s. So more or less the premise of this thing was, if you bought, I think it was 3 or 4 packs of cards, and you sent in the wrappers, they would send you one of these.
To put your hockey cards in, I remember those, yeah.
So anyway, this goes back to the Campbell and the Wales conference. Norris Division, Smythe Division, Patrick and Adams Division. So there's the 21 teams, and then you've got a little slot here for your traders, I guess you would put it.
It's so awesome, man.
I know, and I can't believe I've kept it this long. I actually, as a kid, I wrote my address. I lived in Ajax at the time, so my address is on it, and I've just kind of hung on to this thing. And let's see, we got to pull out some Chicago Blackhawks cards here. We got to stop them.
Okay.
So let's see who we've got. Okay, Troy Murray, Steve Larmer.
He is on. So Troy Murray is part of the color commentary team at the moment for the Hawks. I believe he does their radio broadcast.
Oh, okay.
Steve Larmer, I'm going to drop a name and tell you that Steve and I became friends, and I still keep in touch with him. The odd phone call and email, and ironically, I can't even figure out how we became friends, but we met because I ended up getting invited down to a couple of the afternoon skates when the Hawks would come to Maple Leaf Gardens, and he'd see me sitting on the bench, and he could see, Pat Stapleton's son talking to me, Mike Stapleton, and then eventually Steve came over. I found out that he's a big music fan, but what I was going to say is one of his favorite bands is Big Wreck. He and his wife love Big Rex. So when I was working over at SRO Anthem, and we were part of the management team for Big Rec, we invited Steve out a couple times, and I sent him a couple Big Rec albums, and we keep in touch. And on the hockey note, I remember one day putting him on the spot, and I was just like, dude, I still play a lot of hockey. I play like 2-3 times a week. Tell me some secrets about, like, how do I beat other players as I'm coming down on them? And he looked at me and he said 2 words. He said, Andy, speed kills. And I said, oh, so he goes, if you can transition from kind of gliding in and then just put on the gas pedal, like, I'm just going to tell you, speed kills. And that was his advice to me, but he's such a great guy.
That's awesome. That's so cool.
And he lives in Peterborough now.
Oh, does he? Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool. We've got Al Secord in here. Of course, he was traded to the Leafs.
Can I tell you Al Secord's story?
Sure, of course.
So Coney Hatch are playing in Sudbury. After the show, some girls invite the band to I want to say they called it a bush party.
Right.
So anybody that's been up at Sudbury, that's a rough and tumble. There's some good old boys there. There's not a lot of guys that look like Coney Hatch, especially with the long hair and the eye makeup that we used to wear back then. And, so we were like, yeah, bush party sounds good, man. So, and I can literally, I bet you, like, me and a couple of the boys, we probably just whipped out of our stage clothes, got into some, a jean jacket and hoodie and stuff, and jumped in the car with these girls. And I'm sure we still had makeup on from the show.
From the show, yeah.
So they drive us into the bush. We pull up, and honestly, Tyson, you could cut the air with a knife. Like, everybody turns around, they look at us, and there's a bunch of big old boys there, and they're kind of looking at us like, who the hell are you? I don't know whether they were the boyfriends of these girls that brought us there, but I immediately spot Al Secord, and he's there with Stan. He's in the bush party with Stan Jonathan.
No.
The two of them are there, and I make a beeline over to Al Secord, and I go, dude, I'm the biggest Hawk fan in the world. I love you, man. And we just start immediately. So they see me connect with Al Secord, and then we were completely like good after that, and nobody touched us, right?
Wow.
We got a few war stories out of both of them, and Stan Jonathan. Anybody that knows hockey knows that he was tough as nails. So we got out of that bush party, and it was light by the time we left, but to just walk into the middle of the forest and see Al Secord there with Stan Jonathan, you're like, what the hell is going on here, man?
That's like Twilight Zone.
Yeah, it was cool. It was really cool.
Was it I've played in Sudbury a few times at the Colson.
It wasn't. Yeah, I'm familiar with the Colson, but we actually did. That wasn't the venue that we played. I'm trying to think. I think it was called the Brockdam.
Okay.
If you remember that spot.
No, I don't. Well, I mean, more or less, we would go play at the Colson. I think the last time I was there, it was Thursday, Friday, Saturday night.
Okay.
And then more or less, you would stay in the basement of the Colson. And then there was, like a lot of Canadian bars, there was a strip joint on one side, and then the bar, and then that's like a lot of bars in Canada. So.
Yeah.
Didn't really stray away from the bar a whole lot. I mean, it's pretty boring during the day, and there's not really a lot to do in Sudbury either. And usually it's winter time too.
So what you're telling me is you made friends with the strippers, which we all did, and but they never called themselves strippers. They were entertainers. But anyway, but for anybody that played in that era or grew up in that era, you knew that during the day, the same rock club would have exotic dancers during the afternoon, and then. So a lot of times we couldn't even do sound checks until they were finished. So, it was tough breaks on us. We would have to watch the finishing of the exotic dancers before we had our.
It's a horrible.
Yeah, it was a horrible fate.
That's Ontario, though. I mean,
yeah,
it's touring in Ontario. So
yes, it is.
Now, okay, so Daryl Sutter's in here, of course, who is again the Calgary Flames head coach. Doug Wilson.
Doug Wilson is another fantastic guy that I got to meet and signed an autograph. I think it actually says to the world's biggest Blackhawk fan, but just such a really, really cool guy. I got to meet him after a Leaf Hawk game, and they were all, the entire team. I went with one of the Labatt's Blue reps, and he said, Andy, and he didn't tell me what was going on. Labatt's had sort of, I wouldn't say underwritten, but they had sponsored my solo band, which I called, the No Tattoos album.
Yep.
And we were opening up for Kim Mitchell, and Labatt's basically sponsored us, gave us, a bunch of free beer and kicked in to help pay some of the bills. And so I went to this Leaf Hawk game with Ken Darrett, who was in charge of a lot of the music program. And he said, hey, do you want to go for a drink? I've got some friends of mine that are around the corner after the game. I said, yeah, I'd love to. So we walked into the bar that was in the hotel around the corner, which I think at the time was called the Westbury Hotel. And there was a private room, and we went in there, and the entire Blackhawks team was in there. And everybody from, Larmer and all those guys. So that's where I met Doug Wilson. And he presented me with a signed 8x10 glossy photo, which I still have to this day.
That's so cool. Now, I don't remember this guy. It's a goalie. 84-85 Warren?
Skordadinsky?
Skordadinsky?
Skordadinsky, yeah.
Did he play much?
I think ironically he did, but it wasn't to the stature of Tony O or Ed Belfour, that's for sure.
Yeah, exactly. And then Murray Bannerman's in here.
Yeah.
And then I loved this in O-Pee-Chee back in the day when a player, so Bob Sauvé, who played for Buffalo, I seem to recall for many years.
Okay.
O-Pee-Chee used to paint on the uniform when someone would get traded. So you look at that and you're like, you can totally tell that's painted on.
You know, my brothers and I've got three brothers and we all collected hockey cards. Our favorite was when the guys had their dress shirts underneath their hockey uniforms. And somebody just probably said, hey, Tyson, throw this jersey on. And they give him hockey gloves. And you're like, wait a sec, he's got a dress shirt. Nobody wears dress shirts underneath their jersey. But that's funny that his jersey was painted on.
Yeah,
they traded.
I think there's a bunch of cards in this year. This is Lemieux's rookie season.
Oh, wow.
I believe. And I had two of those cards, and unfortunately I sold them years and years and years ago to a guy, and this was in high school. I sold them to him, and he gave them to his brother for Christmas one year or something like that. But I think I sold them for $6 a piece at the time.
Well, that Lemieux rookie card, I'm sure, would be worth something right now.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And then, of course, Denny Savard's in here.
I got two Denny Savard stories I'm going to share with you. So many, many years after meeting Larmer and Doug Wilson and everything, the players subsequently got traded. So when the Hawks would come into town, it was like I would get a call from the trainer, Mike Gapsky, or the equipment manager, Troy Parchman, and they would say, hey, you want to come down to the morning skated? I haven't seen you in a while. And I would usually bring them rock and roll treats. I'd bring them, some albums or some T-shirts or something, right? Yeah. And so this one particular time, I had asked them, hey, if I come to Chicago, would you guys be able to fix me up with some tickets? Because I'd never been to the United Center. I'd seen some games at the old Chicago stadium, but I'd never been to the United Center. So on this one particular weekend, I went down with a friend of mine. His name's Bill Alexander. He's an Air Canada pilot, and we struck up this deal. He said, "I'll get us flights for free. You get us the tickets." And I said, "No problem." So the arrangement was that I had to go in the afternoon to pick up my tickets down to the arena because the team had already practiced. And so I called up my friend Mike Gapsky, who's the trainer, and he said, yep, go to such and such a gate. Someone will meet you there, and they'll bring you down to meet me, and I'll get you your tickets. So in I go to the arena, and they bring me to this room, and I walk in the door. I'm not even lying. Denny Savard is naked, sitting down, eating his lunch. So, and he's sitting on a chair, and I walk in with my friend, and I'm like, oh, hey, man, sorry. And he's like, no, come on in. And he's eating, and he goes, you're a friend of Mike's? And we're like, yeah. And I'm like, oh, my God. So first time ever, I'm meeting Denny Savard, and he's butt naked, eating his... And when he stood up, I realized later that he was sitting on a towel, but he just put a towel over him, right? So that was the first time I got to meet Denny. And then the next time was many years later when the Hawks were playing Philadelphia Game 5 the first year. It was, I think they beat Philly in 2010 for the Stanley Cup, but I got to go to Game 5. And I got invited up into the ambassador's box. So in that box was Tony Esposito, Stan Mikita, Bobby Hull, and Denny Savard.
That's awesome.
And I nearly died and went to heaven. That was incredible.
That would be awesome. Like all your favorite, a bunch of guys that you grew up watching and admiring. Oh, that's so cool. Now the second part of my hockey thing, I went through some boxes too. And I don't know if you remember this, but back in the 90s, Brian McFarlane did a series of original 6 books.
Oh, okay. I vaguely remember that, yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, of course, there's the Blackhawks, Bruins, Leafs, Red Wings, Rangers, and Canadians. So you've never read this book, then, I take it, the Blackhawks?
Oh, no, I don't recognize it. Is it a good read?
It is. I might have to try and shoot it to you. Yeah, it's a very good read. And I mean, I think it's dated 1995 or something like that.
Wow. McFarlane is such a knowledgeable guy, too, so I bet you those books are cool.
They're really good. I mean, I don't have the hardcover of the Chicago. I mean, the Leafs one looks cool because the hardcover, they made it look a little bit more distressed, right, than the soft cover. Like it looks, the white's not really white. It's more of how the uniform looked back then. So
I like how the retro leaf logo is on there too. But no, I've got a couple of really cool Chicago books. One of them is called 17 Seconds, and that's when they were losing to Boston and 2-1, and came back in the dying part of the Stanley Cup Finals, and scored 2 goals in 17 seconds to beat Boston. That's one of my favorite books. That's a nice hardcover one. And my wife is like, "How many Blackhawk books do you need?" And I said, "How many do they make?"
I would say the same thing. I would say the same thing. And then another book I pulled, and I didn't. And it's not Blackhawks, but this was a really good read. It's about the WHA.
Oh, very cool. I recently got a Chicago Cougars jersey sent to me from Pat Stapleton before he passed away. I had helped Pat with some Team Canada 72 things, and he said, "Andy, what can I do to make this up? You've been such a good guy." And I said, "Well, tell me where I can find a Chicago Cougars jersey," because he was the player coach of the Chicago Cougars, and I didn't want to deviate too far from the Hawks. So that team had Ralph Backstrom, and a couple other Blackhawks were on that team. But I love those old stories about the WHA.
Yeah, so do I. And like, there's a picture of Bob Goldthorpe, who I think I had heard that was maybe in Slapshot that Ogie Oglethorpe was kind of loosely based around this guy.
I had heard the same story. Ogie Oglethorpe, yeah.
Ogie Oglethorpe, yeah.
That looks like a great book. I kind of collect older, like I got an old Oakland Seals baseball cap. I love the old California Golden Seals. Some of those old logos I really love. And when I wear that Chicago Cougars jersey on the ice, 9 times out of 10, even guys of my vintage will say, what is that? And I'm like, dude, what do you mean, what is that? This is the WHA Chicago Cougars. Do you remember the Toronto Toros? Do you remember, right?
Yeah.
So that's a very cool book.
Yeah, and it goes through year by year. So it tells you what teams existed in each year, because so many teams moved and folded.
Yeah.
What was it? How many years was it? I can't remember.
Like 4 or 5 years, but some of them didn't. Some of them signed a bunch of players and never even played a single game. I think about Bernie Perron. Was he on a team like the Sharks or something? Or I can't even remember.
There was a Los Angeles Sharks, right?
Yeah.
I recently saw the logo on Facebook. Somebody posted it, and I had totally forgotten about that one. I mean, everybody remembers, the Nordiques and the Oilers and the Jets and the Whalers. And then the Houston Aeros as well. But besides those teams, there was the Minnesota Fighting Irish and the Birmingham Bulls and what's the other one? There's one more, but I can't remember what it is. But there were some pretty cool teams. And
Miami Screaming Eagles or something.
Yes, right. That's right. And it was a fighting league. And then I think there was a Calgary. They had a weird cowboy.
Oh yeah, like a cowboy hat on it, right?
Cowboy hat on their jersey, which was cool too.
But there is a good urban myth story about Derek Sanderson signing, and I'm trying to think of he signed a really big contract with the WHA team, and I think the first thing he did was they gave him a really big whopping advance, and I think he went out and bought himself a Rolls Royce, if I'm not mistaken. And there's a picture of him online with a fur coat on with this Rolls Royce, and I think somebody told me he spent pretty much his entire contract on a car. Yeah,
that's crazy. I think that might be in that book, but I can't remember. When I got it, I read it, and that was quite a long time ago. So
yeah, that's awesome. I love looking at those old WHA. There's a book that I was thinking of buying about the California Golden Seals, about the rise and fall of it, because they didn't last for very long, but they had the same owner as the Oakland A's, hence the same colors and everything. So
the white skates, which was so cool. But they changed their uniform a bunch of times and tried to keep making a go at it, right?
Yeah.
Did they not move to Cleveland and become the Barons?
That's a very good. I honestly don't know. That's a good trivia question, but one of the just skipping over to, like, I think on part one of our interviews, you and I were talking about some of the arenas that Coney Hatch played in, and Carl and I were such big hockey fans that when we played in Minnesota, we're like, oh man, this is where the Minnesota North Stars play, or we played the Nassau County Coliseum, so we get there early and we just walk around and try to go into dressing rooms and look at photos on the wall and everything. But one of the last, it was the very last show for the Rush 40th anniversary tour, and they played the Forum in Los Angeles. And I remember seeing so many photographs of where the LA Kings played at the Forum, and what a great building, and the architecture on that Los Angeles Forum is incredible.
That's cool. That's very cool. I just caught a highlight the other night, and I guess they're wearing the purple as that alternate jersey this year.
Yeah.
That's bizarre.
I do have an old purple LA Kings jersey that I pull out every now and then. I forget what it's got Drew Doughty on the back, and don't ask me why, but I'm not a Drew Doughty fan. So I wanted to take the number off it, but I do love the old purple uniform.
I like it too. So name here, I'm going to not really name drop, but my mom lives up near Lindsay, and their neighbor is actually Bernie Nichols' cousin.
Oh, he also had a stint on the Hawks for a while.
That's right. Yeah. And he still talks to Bernie, and I've never met Bernie, and I would love to meet Bernie, but he's got lots of stories about Bernie and whatnot. So it's pretty cool.
That's a good connection. And Bernie Nichols was a great player. Did he not play with Wayne Gretzky?
He did. Yeah. He played. Him and Wayne were close, apparently. So he tells me all those stories about Wayne and Bernie and, stuff like that, and the different cities that Bernie did play in. And he's not in the Hall, though.
No, that's pretty ironic that he isn't, and neither is Steve Larmer. I'd like to start a petition to get Larmer into the Hockey Hall of Fame.
I'll sign.
I think he deserves to be. But there was I got to play mixing hockey and rock and roll here. I was lucky enough that a few times I got invited to play sort of these celebrity hockey games with some of the old timers, and there's a radio station in St. Catharines called Hits FM, 97.7 Hits FM. And they knew that I played hockey, so they invited me out a couple times to play against the NHL alumni. And this one particular team had Marty McSorley on it, and what an awesome guy he was. And we went to the bar afterwards, and Marcel Dion was on the team, and is it Brad May from Buffalo Sabres? Brad May was on the team, and and Dickie Redmond, and so not Dickie Redmond. What's his brother? So it was Dickie. No, it wasn't Mickey. Anyway, just to be able to go back to a bar after a hockey game with some NHL guys and ask them a bunch of stories and stuff was just like. You and I talk about this. I already told you that hockey is such a huge passion of mine, and I'm just like a kid in the candy store talking to McSorley, asking him about what it was like to protect Wayne Gretzky and who's some of the toughest guys that he fought and all of that. So those are really great experiences that I got to be part of. And mix the rock and roll and hockey thing together.
Well, ironically, as a Blackhawks fan. Like I told you before, I lived in Orono. Well, Brian Bickle lived on my street. He lived right around the corner, and his dad used to change my oil. And I remember Brian, I'm older than Brian, and he would run across my lawn in a diaper. And little did I know, one day he was going to be a Hawk. He would be playing for the Blackhawks.
That guy's like a brick wall. And speaking of that 17 seconds, it was he and Bolin that scored back-to-back goals to help the Hawks win, to beat the Bruins that year. But it's weird when you talk about Brian Bickle, because I mentioned to you that one of my friends was, or still is, the trainer of the Blackhawks, and Bickle played with such an edge. And at the latter part of his career, that nobody knew that he was ill. He eventually retired. Yeah. And I remember asking my friend Mike, what's wrong with Bickle, man? He used to hit everybody in sight on the ice. He used to be such a shit disturber, and he would have lots of games where he was a healthy scratch, but I don't think anybody knew that he was ill before he retired.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. His career ended early, right?
Yeah,
really early. It seemed like it got started, and then he was diagnosed. So
yeah,
that's too bad. But let's talk some music.
I thought we already were, but no problem.
Oh, yeah.
we were talking music and hockey.
We're talking music and hockey. Well, that segues. I guess that'll segue into the music portion of the program.
Yeah. Okay, no problem.
So last time, you mentioned this new Coney Hatch album, Live at the El Macombo, and there it is.
Oh, look at you!
Yeah.
What number copy did you get?
I have
there?
number 76.
Okay.
Yeah, I was pretty excited. And they sent me a Coolie cup with it too. I was pretty happy.
Well, that's courtesy of the band, and that we sent that to everybody as a thank you for waiting forever for that frickin' record, because we recorded it in October, and here we are, just coming into May now, and we got lots of emails from people going, when's the record coming? So we spoke to our merch guy, and I just said, man, we got to put some little thank you in there. And what Coney Hatch fan do we know that doesn't drink beer and might want to put a koozie on to keep their hand warm? So we that was a little thank you for everybody from us. But you just pulled up that album cover, and I have to tell you that every single one of those album covers was hand stamped.
Yep.
The first 100 were autographed by each member, and that was an ordeal in itself, because I signed it and then put them all back in a box and sent them up to Thunder Bay, and then Dave signed them and put them in a box and sent them to Halliburton, and then Carl signed them and put them in his car and drove them back down to Sean Kelly, and he signed them and then brought them back here, and we stuck the albums in.
It is amazing.
Yeah, so every one of those records passed through all four members of Coney Hatch's hand.
And this sticker on the front with, it just says, live, new release from Canadian rock icons, Coney Hatch, live at the El Macombo, Toronto, Ontario, featuring 15 tracks. And then official limited bootleg version of 300 copies. And then it's actually written, it's number 76 of 300, made in Canada. It's so cool. And then it's just that white cover on the back. I haven't played it yet. I have to,
okay.
Because of my move. I moved this weekend, so I was like, I'm waiting till I get my stereo set up again, and I can really sit down with it and get a good listen to it. But I'm excited to hear it.
I hope you like it. We're really pleased with the sound of it. Vic Florencia, who is a Juno Award-winning mixing engineer who mixed the record, and Doug McClement was at the console the night of and recorded it. And Doug, his history with the El Macombo goes right back to when Stevie Ray Vaughan and Blondie played there. Doug was the recording engineer at the El Macombo for all of the live simulcasts. So there's a lot of history there. And the very last thing I'll say about the album jacket, it was inspired by a bootleg that I bought for the Cars, and I saw the Cars at the El Macombo, and I subsequently found a bootleg copy of the Cars live at the El Macombo, and that was the cover. It was white with a rubber stamp on it, and I thought, well,
I love it,
man. That's a great idea. Let's thank you, Cars. I'm going to borrow your idea.
That's so cool.
So we kept it pretty bootleg.
So we left off with the No Tattoos album, as you called it. I had a few more questions about that.
Yeah.
We kind of we talked about License to Love, No Tattoos. There's a few other songs I was kind of curious about. Nickels and Dimes, always love that track. Bluesy vibe. That intro, was that always intended? Was it written that way, or did that happen organically in the studio? Did it happen after the fact?
Tyson, that's a good question. It was I'll backtrack a bit and tell you that I wrote that song on an acoustic guitar, but a friend of mine who is a very good guitar player said to me, Andy, do you ever mess around with open tuning? And I'm a bass player, but I'm just a dumb 4-string bass player guy. And I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about, open tuning. And full transparency, I've never been able to read music. I can make my way around tab music. I can, if you put some tablature in front of me, I know what that is, and I certainly know all the notes on my neck. That's not a problem. But to actually, I can't read music, right? Yeah. So I'm a closet guitar player. I write on guitar. For the most part, when I started with Coney, I started on the bass, but I really love, like I said, I'm a closet guitar player. I own about 4 or 5 guitars, and one of them is this really cool old arch top harmony. And he said, well, I'm going to show you what I mean by open tuning. He said, you tune each of your strings to a chord, like an open chord. So he said, I'm going to tune your guitar in open G, and you can literally play with one finger, but if you strum the entire guitar, it's a G chord.
G chord, yeah.
And so I was like, oh my God, this is cool. And I left it in G tuning for a year, and I had a slide bar. And for anybody that doesn't play guitar or does play guitar, when you're in open G tuning, you can literally just play it with one finger. So I came up with that riff that is the beginning of Nickels and Dimes. And when I brought it in to do the record myself, I was sort of co-producing it with Bill Petrie, who had a studio in Toronto called Studio B. And we were like, well, you know what we should do, man? Let's just leave the intro like it's going to be an acoustic song, and then boom, let's like kick you right between the eyes with the band coming in. So it was a calculated decision to start it off with the slide guitar and the acoustic vibe, and subsequently digging a hole that ended up being used by Gordy Johnson, and Big Sugar. I worked on that in open G tuning with Dan Gallagher, and the two of us wrote that for Dan Gallagher's Beat Heathens, but that was another song that was written on the harmony in open G tuning. I love it. And the Stones are probably, Keith Richards and the Rolling Stones are probably the number one culprit for a lot of open tuning. And you can hear it a lot in Sticky Fingers and, Exile on Main Street and Brown Sugar, all that kind of stuff, right? So there's a certain sound, and I really wanted that bluesy sound on Nickels and Dimes.
I love that tuning. I've used it for years. Like, I'll just mess around with it occasionally.
Yeah. And we actually did record, we got a bunch of coins and dropped them on the table and had a microphone there to try to get the sound of dropping coins and stuff like that.
Okay, I was wondering that. You know what? And I'm glad you mentioned that. The production on that album, the sound, like the cymbals, like the ride cymbal just resonates really well, and the snare splash is really good. It's sonically, it is a great sounding album. I mean, when I listen to it, I'm listening to it and I go, I never realized how great this album actually sounded production wise.
Well, and thank you for saying that. I'll tell you something interesting. When we finished recording that record, Tom Barry, who was the president of Alert Music at that time, still is, he said, who do you want to mix this record? And at the time, I had been listening, Billy Squier was on the radio quite a lot, and I was like, oh my God, like, say what you will about Billy Squier, like, those records, they sounded amazing. And so I went down the rabbit hole. I was like, who the hell mixed the Billy Squier record? I did a lot of research, and my search ended in finding out that it was a guy from New York City, a guy by the name of Alex Haas, spelled Haas. And I convinced Tom Barry that was the guy who had to mix the record. And we flew him up to Toronto, and we booked some time at Phase One Studios, and Alex mixed the entire record. And so I can, other than approving the mixes, I had nothing to do with it. That was all Alex Haas.
Really? Oh, it sounds phenomenal. Those cymbals, especially that ride, because I love a ride. Like, I like hearing, like the bell of the ride. I really love to hear that. And that one really comes out nicely.
I'll have to tell Alex next time I talk to him.
Absolutely. No, that's cool. And I must mention that I got a hold of the album on vinyl.
Oh,
it's coming.
Good find. Good find
from Europe. I got a confirmation from DHL that it'll be delivered next Monday, I think.
That is a good find, because I only have one copy of my own, and they are very tough to find. And I'm actually talking to Tom Barry at this very moment about We missed the 20th anniversary of that last year, so we're kind of in the 21st anniversary right now.
Yeah.
But we're talking about doing an anniversary edition of that, which I would go in and I would remaster the original record, and then we would probably add some demos and maybe some live tracks, some demos, or maybe some tracks that didn't make it to the album. So it's one of my goals to kind of continue what I did with the Leisure World and the Caramel records, to go back and revisit the debut record, which I call the No Tattoos record, and do some kind of an anniversary release. You know, I'm proud. There was 2 Juno Award nominations for Best Hard Rock Metal Album. We actually lost out to Rush, so that's no problem. Don't never have to worry about that. Okay. But that was the year that I won the Juno for Most Promising Male Vocalist, which is kind of a lark in itself, considering I had been around for already, 5 or 6 years with Coney Hatch, so it wasn't like I was a new vocalist, but somebody deemed me the most promising male vocalist that year.
Wow. That's it. That must have been an honor. You must have been just like blown away. Like, man, I wanted to. This is awesome.
I couldn't believe it, man. It was like, if you can imagine, it would happen in Vancouver. I went with my brother Mike, and we were sitting there, and they called my name, and I was like, what the hell? And next thing I know, I'm backstage, I'm doing interviews, but the very first thing I did was get on the phone and call my mom and dad, who were watching, and go, can you believe it? And they're like, yes, we can.
That's awesome. So where do you keep your Juno?
Well, there was a running joke. I had 2. The year that I won it, a couple of years later, my eldest daughter Sidoni, we used to set up a ring toss, and because they're pointed, they look like a big. And some of my friends would say, "Where's your Juno?" And I said, "It's in my daughter's bedroom," and we put ring toss on it. But it's here. It's actually right beside me here. One sec, I'll show you.
That's cool.
There we go. There you go, sir.
Awesome. I have seen one before. My a good friend of mine, Kevin Gale from Slick Toxic.
Yeah,
he's got one too, and I went over to his house and I was like, Kev, you gotta show it to me, man. And I want to see your gold record, which was a gold CD. They didn't do records anymore, so
yeah. No, that was certainly one of the highlights of my career. I didn't see it coming, but we had a ton of momentum. I mean, License to Love and No Tattoos and a song called Let Go. They were getting a lot of airplay, and I got lucky that Much Music got behind it, and we got a boatload of Much Music airplay with License to Love and No Tattoos. So that definitely, the awards are always odd when you think about it, and you say, well, how did that person win and that other person didn't? Because there's always great candidates, and I think a lot of it has to do with visibility and hype and promotion. If you're visible and people are voting for you, they might recognize your name and go, oh yeah, right, Andy Curran, he's all over the airwaves. So I kind of think a lot of that has to go with Lisa Zabitnew and the press that she was doing with Alert Records, and the amount of interviews and promos and airplay we got. I think it just fueled the visibility and ended up with me, getting a Juno that year.
Yeah, and I mean, you being on Much Music all the time helped too, and being, Dan calling you up and telling you to come down to do, come in.
I love him.
Or whatever, so that's cool. I remember seeing you on Much all the time, and I was like, what's the deal? Andy Curran's on here a lot. This is great. But now I know why, because of Dan Gallagher. So
yeah, and they had me on speed dial too. I almost got the feeling that if somebody canceled, they were like, oh, let's get that Curran guy. He lives down the street. He'll come in, right? I remember they called me in to play table hockey. They're like, are you available to come in and play table hockey? And I'm like, yeah. So
well, you're a good sport about it.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Now, you just mentioned Let Go. Let Go is the one with I was listening to the album the other day, female voice on there.
Yes.
Who is that again?
That's Cindy Matthews. So Cindy had a band called Cindy and the Slammers, and my friend Warren Toll was the bass player in the band, and I used to go see them all the time. And when we were writing that song and recording it, I can't remember whether it was me or Bill Petrie, but somebody said, man, we should maybe get a female vocalist to drop in a couple lines on this. And I said, I think I know just the girl. And so I asked Cindy to do it, but she's got an amazing voice.
That's a great part. That part really stands out in the song. All of a sudden it's there. It's like, it's that next step of the song, and it's right there. It's really cool.
Thank you for saying that. Yeah, we dropped it in on the breakdown. It did seem like the appropriate part to put it in.
Yeah, that's perfect. So you win a Juno. The album's successful. Did the label decide to move on?
So that's a great question. I'll tell you exactly what happened. It was really weird what happened, because I could feel the wheels kind of falling off the track as the Juno Awards approached, and there was a bunch of different things that happened internally with the label. And let's just say I ended up flying myself out to the Junos, because at the time they were like, I was like, so, what are the plans? Where's my plane ticket? And they were like, yeah, no. And I think a lot of it was maybe financial, like, a long story short.
Right.
For anybody in the industry, when you get nominated for an award, usually the label picks up the tab, your hotel, all that kind of stuff. That did not happen with me. Luckily enough, my sister worked for American Airlines, and I told her the story, and she said, I'm sending you a free ticket. And my brother Mike lived out in Vancouver, so he's like, I'm picking you up, come on out here, and you can stay with me. So I paid my own way out there. But the long story short was the label essentially came to me, despite the success of that record, and said, we are not doing another record with you. We're not keeping the label going. Believe it or not, after having a Juno, and it's funny, I have to back up and tell you that at the Juno Awards, one of the first guys to come and shake my hand was my old manager, Ray Daniels, who manages Rush. And Ray came over to me and he said, congratulations on winning the Kiss of Death. And I said, what? What are you talking about? He goes, oh, you don't know that the most promising is the Kiss of Death, man. You win that, and so I thought, man, what a fun sucker! Like, and he was half joking, right? But the wheels literally started falling off after that, and so my manager at that time, Tom Barry, and was the label head, said, I can do a publishing deal with you, but I can't do another record. And I said, dude, I got to do another record, man. I got to momentum. Like, there's all this momentum. So we did lose some momentum there. He did introduce me to the guys at Sony Music, and I ended up signing a publishing deal with Sony Music. And I forget how, but Tom Tremuth over at Hypnotic Records, and speaking of Big Sugar, they had just released Big Sugar's first record on Hypnotic, and he said, I'll do another record with you. So we did lose a bit of time, and by the time I got in to record the Scatterbrain record, a lot of the people at Much Music had changed. They did play quite a bit of Kiss My Boots, but that was a long battle to get that thing. I mean, we did this really funny campaign, Tyson, I got to tell you about it. Like, so we sent the video in for Kiss My Boots, and they said, we're not going to add it. And we're like, wait a second, you go from being like one of the darlings there, and they're playing the crap, and now all of a sudden they don't want to know about you, right? So this is a true story. So I called up every one of my friends that I knew, and I said, do you have an old pair of shoes that you're gonna throw out? And they're like, yeah. And I said, I'm coming over to pick them up. So we got about 4 or 5 boxes filled of old, dirty, stinky shoes, and we sent Much Music a pair of dirty shoes with a Kiss My Boots, courtesy of Andy Curran, every single day for a month. Finally, and Denise Donlin, who was over there, will tell you this is true. She said, we got so sick and tired of you sending us dirty shoes that we actually added your video, because we were like, we're just going to harass these people.
I love it.
And we knew all of the names of the people that were on the jury that decided what videos. So, Kim Clark Champness, here's your pair of dirty shoes from Andy Curran, Kiss My Boots, right? Or Soho 69, right? And we badgered them into adding that song. So we eventually got Much Music to play that. But again, the label was very challenged financially. By the time we finished the record, they reneged on their tour support. So I think we did a couple shows. One of them was very memorable, opening up for King's X at what was now called the Government. So that was a good show. RPM, yeah. So, and that was a big thrill for me because Doug Pinnick is not only one of my favorite bass players, but one of my favorite vocalists. So, the Soho 69 chapter, we did play a lot of shows leading up to that record, but subsequently the tour after to promote it was a grand total of one show.
Really?
Yeah.
That's crazy, man.
Yeah.
I recall my girlfriend at the time, she kept saying to me, she's like, have you heard Soho 69? I'm like, yeah, is that Andy Curran's band? I can't remember exactly how it went down. She goes, there's this great song on the radio. And I believe 97.7 was playing it all the time. And I think that's where we always did. That was a station I listened to the most back then.
Yeah.
It was a great station. And she's like, Kiss My Boots. And I was like, I don't know if I've heard that. She goes, no, it's amazing. It's a great song. And finally I heard it and I was like, oh man, this is a great song. And of course it was Andy Curran. And I thought it was funny that you talk about this whole story and this song. You're having such a hard time getting it, Much Music to play it, but it had hit written all over it. I listened to it today and I go, man, this is a great song. And the great thing is the lyrics in that song too, because it's so, you're like, you listen to it and you laugh because you're like, oh man, I know what he's talking about. It was such a great premise. It was just a great song.
Well, I thank you for saying that. I want to give you a bit of background on that. So one of the things prior to writing that song, one of the things that Sony Music said to me as my publisher, they said, have you ever thought of co-writing? And I said, well, I am co-writing. I'm co-writing with Simon Brierley and Michael Burkowski and different people in my bands. And they're like, no. We'll fly you to LA. We'll fly you to New York. Like who, would you like to write with one of these, these hitmaker guys? And I was like, well, I go, throw me some names. And they said, are you a Rod Stewart fan? And I said, well, I like old Rod Stewart and the Faces when Ronnie Wood was in the band. I like that kind of stuff. I'm not so much on Do You Think I'm Sexy, but the early stuff, And they said, well, one of our writers in LA is the guitar player for Rod Stewart. His name is Robin LeMessieur. And he's just a really, really cool guy. And what do you think about going down to LA and maybe trying to write a few songs with him? And so my sister lives in Laguna Beach, which is just an hour south of LA. Yeah. So it was a great opportunity to go see her. So I flew in and I met Robin and I brought him sort of the bones of Kiss My Boots and we started working on it. And he said, what do you have for lyrics? And I said, well, don't laugh, but it's about a tomboy. It's like my sister's name is Larry. My friends, I'll call her Bill. And he was like, oh my God, that's it. That's a good opening line. And and part of the inspiration of that was I grew up in a very big family, 3 brothers, 2 sisters. And a lot of times, if you were going to get in a fight with your brother or the neighborhood kids, the only way that you would basically say uncle is you push their face in, you're like, kiss my feet, right? And the minute they kiss your feet, then they're off the hook. So I took the inspiration to Kiss My Boots on there. And we just kind of ran with it. And full transparency, my wife Monica, who I've been married to for many years, was also a key inspiration because she's a bit of a tomboy. She likes to play sports and she likes to play rough, and so I took a lot of things from her. She don't wear no frilly dress, and stuff like that. It's like I'm talking not about a girly girl here. I'm talking about a rough and tumble. I'm going to kick your ass, and it's a full tomboy song.
I love it. It was such a good one. I remember hearing those lyrics for that first line, like you mentioned. Like, it was like, this is cool.
And the working title of it was actually called Larry. I saw some old demos and it was just called Larry. It wasn't even called Kiss My Boots.
Wow. So, as we stated in part one of our interview, there was a story behind the copy I have, which was the German release, and you told me to mention it this time.
Oh, okay. I'm glad you reminded me of it. Okay. So, part of the plight of a musician in a band is like, when you get a record deal, the first thing you usually say is, well, what territories are we going to be released in? And I found out very quickly that the Soho 69 record was only a Canadian release. And I said to the president of the label at that time, well, I've got some friends in Germany and in the UK, and Coney Hatch had a lot of coverage with Curran magazine and Sounds and everything. There's some fans of Coney and my music out there that I think would release this. And he said, oh, okay. Well, why don't you put me in touch with him? So I did. And a couple of days later, he said, Andy, I got good news. We got a German deal. And I said, fantastic. Maybe we can even get over there to play. He was like, yeah, well, let's see what happens, right? Yeah. So fast forward, as I told you, we put the record out. The record company doesn't want to spend any money, no tour support, no nothing. I'm immediately thinking, oh man, they're definitely not going to get to Germany. So I basically gave the label an ultimatum. I said, you know where to find me. You know my phone number. The minute you're ready to promote the record, you want to put your money where your mouth is, I'll put the band back together, I'll go on the road. But don't expect me to slog it across Canada or do any shows if you're not going to support it, because you're just basically going to bankrupt me. I'm going to have to underwrite everything on my own. So we went into this limbo, no phone calls, no nothing. One day the phone rings and it's the president of the German label, the guy that I knew. And he is livid. He is losing his mind. And I'm talking about his tree. I'm saying, dude, what's going on? Why are you so angry? He said, well, I did a deal for all of Europe with your guy, not just Germany. And he said, I just drove across the border into the UK and I found another company releasing your record in the UK. And now I've discovered there's another company that's releasing it in France and this. And so behind my back, the record company went in and did a bunch of deals in territories that I didn't even know of and reneged on their deal in Germany. And I was like red-faced and said, I honestly had no idea this was going on. I mean, I got an ear blasting because the guy thought that I had something to do with it. But that just, you hear stories about how sleazy the record in the music industry is, and that's the kind of stuff that goes on behind closed doors. So he would have got advances for those. He would have made money for them. And he basically, defrauded the guy in Germany, and yours truly got blasted on it. But when you told me you had a German copy, I was almost going to say, like, are you sure you don't have the UK bootleg copy? Or like, which one do you have, right?
Yeah. Wow.
But that's the kind of dark stories that nobody ever knows of. So I felt very, very bad, because when you do a contract with someone, you're supposed to keep your word and the integrity on it. You don't go ahead and do side deals, and he was fit to be tied.
Wow, that's crazy. You know what? That actually, you mentioning that kind of drives me crazy. Is that when I'm trying to find something, I'll go on Discogs, Canadian artist. I can't find it from a seller in Canada. It's always Europe. Yeah. Like, I go to find a Killer Dwarfs album. Like, I just bought Big Deal because I can't find a copy here in Canada. It ended up coming from Germany or something like that.
Well, Tyson, it's a big issue with Canadian labels and sometimes U.S. labels. There's not a lot of faith, or there's not a lot of thought behind feeding the physical market. And that's one of the reasons why we did this bootleg on our own with Coney Hatch, because you find out that a lot of these companies are just thinking about digital. They're happy to put it up on Spotify and Amazon and Apple because it doesn't cost them any money to press any records. But what they're forgetting about is all of the people that love to buy and hold tangible CDs and vinyl and look at the artwork. So we've been having a lot of conversations about this. I'm talking to a company right now who are basically, their model is they want to go around and talk to all the labels and say, okay, if you're not going to release Coney Hatch, or you're not going to release Slick Toxic or Killer Dwarves or Brighton Rock or any of these bands anymore. Give us the rights to, and we'll give you a little piece of the action, because none of these labels are stepping up. If you tried to find a copy of Coney Hatch today in Canada, I would say you're going to be hard pressed to find a physical copy of the CD or the vinyl, because Anthem Records doesn't give a shit about it. They're not interested in putting out anything anymore.
That sucks.
Yeah.
Because there's still a market, and somewhat of a market. Obviously, there's a market because you're selling the live albums, right?
Yeah, and we're not the only band out there, and they're not the only label that just don't believe in carrying physical inventory at this point. Maybe they feel it's a dying art. I think there's always going to be a market for vinyl and CDs. I know. I just saw Danko Jones did something with cassette. He just released a cassette. I was like, good on you, buddy.
Apparently, it's cheaper. That's what I heard.
Yeah,
that it's a cheap way of doing it.
You got to find a cassette player, then, I guess.
I know I don't have one, so I wouldn't buy a cassette because I don't have.
I think I still have my Sony Walkman, believe it or not,
really?
Somewhere. Yeah, oh yeah.
Mine's long gone. So let's talk about Caramel.
Mm-hmm.
That is, I just recently bought the CD off the Coney Hatch website. And it was awesome. They included the single for Lucy on there too for the
very cool. Very cool.
Yeah, and this is cool too. It's still got the hype sticker on it. What's it say? The next track is Mother Nature's Mistakes, track 5. Did they all have different stickers on them, Andy?
I believe that was okay, this is our next single to come, and that's a very important record for me because the long story short with that, so after the quick demise of Soho 69, my publishing company said, okay, what do you want to do? Would you like to be like Robin LeMessier? Do you want us to send you around the world writing songs to people? And I said, I ain't done yet. And they said, you could do a new record if you want. And I said, yep, I'm in. So at Sony Music, there was a recording studio there, and they built it right into the office of the record company. So as part of my deal, I got to use that studio. So that was the good part. The bad part was I wasn't signed to the label, so I had to wait until Our Lady Peace and Junk House and Daddies of Eden and all of these other bands that were in there, when they weren't using the studio,
so you had to go late at night.
I could get it. So that record, and this has never happened to me ever in my life before, it took me 3 years to make. I was in that building for 3 years just because I had to piecemeal all my time in, right?
Oh
and at the end of it, I finished. So I had this finished record, and they said to me, what do you want to do with this? And I said, well, are you going to play it for Sony Canada? I would assume. I've been in the building here. You're going to play it for them? And so I had a meeting with the A&R guy, and he looked me in the face. He said, yeah, this record's pretty good. He said to me, if you can get a deal in the US, we will sign you. And I thought, big fucking deal. So would every single label in the world. If I walked into Capitol Records tomorrow and said, by the way, okay, Capitol, do you want the record for Canada? Because I've got a deal for the rest of the world. I would have labels lining up behind me, right?
Yeah.
So I thought, oh my God, really? I've been in this building for 3 freaking years, and this is how it's going to end. So I just got this record. So I said to the publishing guy, he said, well, they're not going to sign it here. What do you want to do? I said, I've got some friends in Buffalo, and they've got a little imprint label. They're called 41 Records, and they've got a lot of friends in the U.S., and we're thinking of doing this independently. And he said, well, what do you mean? I said, we're going to press some records, and they're going to send them out to some radio stations and see if we can get some airplay. And he said, oh, okay, well, let me know how that goes. It was kind of like, don't let the door hit you on the ass on the way out, right? Did the record, manufactured it, sent it out, and this is a lightning strikes thing, man. I'm honestly going to say within a month, Lucy caught fire in the U.S. We were top 10 in cities like Boston and Madison and parts of LA, and we were just like, oh my God, what's happening? And so
that's awesome.
For anybody who's not in the business, the business has a lot of trade papers, and a lot of these A&R guys that are signing acts to labels, they'll go on the trade papers and they'll see, oh, who's getting played in Boston, who's getting played in San Francisco, who's getting played in Milwaukee, and what label are they on? And we were listed as 41 Records independent. So Tyson, a bidding war started. We had tons of calls from about 7 or 8 labels, and Geffen said, we're getting on a plane next week. We want to come and see the band. We had never played a single show. We had just been doing a lot of rehearsing. We hadn't played in front of an audience. So I called up my friend Ralph James, who's the agent for Nickelback, and he was a very dear friend. And I said, Ralph, I got a problem here. I need you to book me a show in Toronto next week. I gave him 1 week's notice, right? And he said, well, what do you think about playing the Horseshoe on a Sunday night? I said, I don't care what night it is, just get me a gig. So we booked a gig at the Horseshoe. I called up all my pals, and it was a rent-a-crowd. And I said, you got to come out to the Horseshoe. We got a big label guy coming to see us. Came to see us. We played one set. I guess we blew the guy away, came in the dressing room, and he said, welcome to the Geffen family. We had a contract on our desk in 2 days after that and signed with Geffen for the world. So that was quite a roller coaster ride. We immediately got on dates with Stabbing Westward and Creed and Brother Kane, Econoline Crush. Started playing. We got to play Red Rocks Amphitheater in Denver, and then all of a sudden, out of the blue, we get a call saying that Geffen Records has been bought by Universal, and so the whole label completely imploded. So that was kind of like, you think of my track record. So we had Alert, and we had Hypnotic, and then now one of the biggest. I mean, I would have thought, wait a second, come on, Geffen Records is like, come on, Geffen's one of the. That's where Guns N' Roses is. That's where Rob Zombie is. That's where so many bands. So anyway, the cool thing was the guy that signed me said, Andy, I'm really sorry that this is happening. We had such great aspirations for you. That one of the songs called Feels Like a Sunday was mixed by Chris Lord-Alge, one of the biggest mixers in the music business. And they had single 1, 2, 3, 4 set up, and there was a bit of a long-term plan. But basically Geffen dropped all of their bands. They kept Rob Zombie and a few other people, and they gave me my masters back. They said, here you go.
That's all.
So anyway, so that's what subsequently led to me going, well, I own this thing now. I should put it back up on Amazon and Spotify and Apple. And it only took me, 15 or 20 years to do it. But I did, because at one point I thought, well, maybe somebody might want to buy the masters off me. And there was a few times that I almost sold them to a couple of different labels, but I hung on to them. I hung on to Leisure World, and then eventually over COVID, I thought, this is not doing me any good. These records are just literally sitting in a cabinet in my studio. So I spoke to Symphonic Distribution in Nashville and worked out a plan with them, and that's why we were able to get them up on those 2 records. Caramel and Leisure World up on Amazon and Spotify now. So I definitely, there's no illusions of getting rich off of those, because anybody that knows anything about streaming income, it's sort of penny stocks. It would have to become a worldwide phenomenon for me to be making any money off those. But I'm so proud of those records. I thought, I'm just going to put them up there, and hopefully people enjoy them.
Yeah, no, that's cool. Now, inside the inlay of the Caramel CD, now we're back to hockey again, because
Yes.
The cool thing is that Blackhawks ticket from October 27th, 1983. Is there significance to that? Obviously, that was probably your ticket. You're in Coney Hatch at that time.
Yes.
Were you on tour and went to the game?
That's absolutely what happened, Tyson. So I was talking to the art director on it, and she said, what do you want to do with this thing? This is your baby. You can do whatever you want. So I called up Simon and I called up Eddie, and I said, okay, here's the deal. I think was it Randy Cook on that one? No, that was Eddie. Yeah. And I just said, okay, basically you guys each have a panel. You can do whatever you want on it. I gave them free reign to do whatever they wanted, right?
Yeah.
And so I thought, well, I'm going to put my Blackhawks stub from the very first game that I went to at the Chicago Stadium. A couple other little tchotchke things.
What's the postcard with the Mountie on it with the Chicago Stadium thing? Is it? What is that?
Well, the postcard with the Mountie is, I thought, okay, but, as I picked that up somewhere on the road, and I just thought it was, because everybody thinks of Mounties when they think of Canadians. So I was like, okay, this is a dumb Canadian thing. I'm going to put it in there. The Chicago Black. It was just sort of like a little grab bag of things. I think there's a Thunderbirds rocket in there because I'm a big fan of Thunderbirds. So it was just like, I don't know, stream of consciousness. I'm going to put a bunch of dumb images in there. And they said, oh, you better put your photo in there. So I said, oh, I'm going to have a photo of me getting my hair cut because there's a song about don't cut my hair in there, right? So
that's good too.
Yeah.
No, it's cool. And then Simon did the whole Angus Glenn golf theme.
Yeah, he's a big, big golf fan and plays a lot of golf. And his buddy Kevin Thistle was running Angus Glenn at that time, so he went on a golf motif, and if I recall, Eddie Zeman was doing some kind of a frisbee motif or something. But it was just like we had no label. Think about that, no label, nobody telling you what to do.
Yeah,
we had free reign. So those guys were like, well, "What are you talking about? We get to do whatever we want." I was, "Yeah, that panel is yours. Do whatever you want."
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. And I mean, it's good conversation piece too, because here we are talking about it. So
that's a great memory. I believe, I don't know if you got the stub in front of you. Was it the Pittsburgh Penguins? I can't even remember.
It was the Penguins. Yeah, that's exactly what it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool. That's it. I mean, and the cover's so bizarre too. The cactus with the face looks like kind of like a totem pole or something.
I'll tell you the story about that. I ran across this magazine, this advertising magazine, and I was just flipping through it, and there was this picture of this cactus head guy eating a bowl of spaghetti. And I was like, oh my God, this is really striking. This is like it really catches your attention, and he looks really like a curmudgeon. And there was a little write-up about it, the guy who made this little cactus head, and it said that he was lived in Toronto, and here was his phone number, but it was for advertisers. So I called up the guy and I was like, hey man, I just saw your photo in this thing. Like, what are you doing with this? And would I be able to license it for the cover of my record? Because I just think it's so striking. It catches your eye. And he said, yeah. He goes, what's the name of your band? And I said, Caramel. And he goes, oh, well, there's nothing caramelly about this image. And I said, I know. That's what I like about it. It's like the exact opposite.
I was going to ask you that. Why? Yeah. Was there? Yeah, okay, that's cool.
It's so prickly and ornery. It's just like it's like a bit of an oxymoron there, right? So I think the guy's name was Robert. I'm trying to remember his last name. He's a really nice dude. And we just licensed it off him honestly, it just caught my eye, and I thought, in a record store as you're going by, you might see that cactus head and go, what the heck is that?
Yeah.
And it makes you want to pick it up.
Yeah, that's cool. It's a cool cover. So we talked, so there's, besides that album, after that, and you did talk about Leisure World, and there's Drug Plan as well. Mm-hmm. I have not had a chance to listen to either of those albums, but they are on my radar, and I know they are available on the Coney website, so at some point I'm going to pick those up. Is there much more to say about either one of those releases that you can tell me about?
Absolutely. So I'm gonna touch on a few points that you said. So yes, there are some physical copies available on the website. That's part of the Andy store, but once they're gone, that's it. There's no more. Those just happen to be copies that I had left over. So for yourself or anybody else that's listening, once they're gone, there's no plans to replenish those as of yet. But I will tell you that the Drug Plan record is almost identical to the Leisure World record. There's a different song selection. And what happened was when I formed the band and finished the album cover, which is a tattooed baby, and nobody tattoos babies, so I thought that's going to be pretty cool. I'm going to put like one of those armbands on, and so we photoshopped this little tattooed baby and put Drug Playing in. And we had a record company in LA called Artist Direct that loved the record, and they said, "We're going to sign you." So we did a phone call with them, and they said, "So the good news is we're going to sign you. The bad news is we absolutely hate the name of the band. We are not going for Drug Playing." And I was like, "Why not?" And they said, "Well, it's just not cool. It's just people aren't gonna. It's just wrong. We're not gonna. We don't endorse drugs. We don't do it." I said, "This had nothing to do with that. I'm literally talking about a drug plan. Everybody's got a drug plan. I said, "Do you get your health and medical and dental paid for?" And the guy's like, "Yeah." And I said, "So you got a drug plan?" "I got a drug plan. It just happens to be my record." And he's like, "Nope, we're not doing it. We're not doing it. You got to call it something else." So we came up with the name Trailer Park. And this was pre-Trailer Park Boys, because I just said, well, let's change names. We're going to be Trailer Park. So we start minting this CD, and same thing happens. We go top 10 in Boston with a song called "I'm Dead." And at the time, the band is no longer called Drug Playing. We're called Trailer Park. So we're now going up the charts, and we get invited to Boston to open for Limp Bizkit and play a show with WAAF in Boston. And we get an angry call from the program director who says, "I just got a letter from a band called Trailer Park, and they're telling us that they're going to sue us if we continue to play this song because they're called Trailer Park and they have the rights to the name." And so we said, "Okay, just call us Trailer Park USA." So for a brief period, we were called Trailer Park USA, and then we just screw it. Let's just call it Leisure World. So we eventually settled on Leisure World. We took some songs off of the Drug Playing record and added some new songs to it. So their track listing is slightly different, and the mastering job is slightly different. But then what I did for Apple, Amazon, and Spotify is we combined everything. So there's 20 tracks on there, and that's a combination of both records. But I'll go on record as saying, out of everything that I've ever been involved in or ever recorded or ever written, the Leisure World album is the record that I'm the most proud of.
Cool. Hands
down. I just think everything, I'm just so... Yeah, full stop. I'm just so proud of that record. I love the sound of it, and that's one of the reasons I wanted people to hear it, because I think I stepped my game up a little bit in that record.
That's cool. I'm the guy that will buy both of them, just because. I mean, I'm the collector that will. It's like, oh, it's a different mix. There's different mixes on it. Okay, I'm curious to hear what this song sounds like, and then comparing it to the other one. I guess I'm kind of a musical geek when it comes to that, right?
Well, let me tell you a funny thing. If you manage to get a copy of the Leisure World record, when you open up the CD, on the CD, it actually says Trailer Park USA.
Oh, cool.
So it's a mixture of the chaos that we were going through.
Cool. Okay.
So a message to you bands out there: make sure that nobody else has your name before you print your record.
Yeah, that's a good point. Or you could be like Winger, and it says Sahara on their first album right on the bottom.
Or it was a mess. We should have done our homework, but. And the ironic part about it was this band that was called Trailer Park. They were like a freaking chicken wing band. They were like a cover band.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, and we were sent a cease and desist. We're going to sue your ass off if you keep using this name. So anyway, message to bands and artists out there: protect your name. Make sure that you do a name search and nobody else has got that name.
That's crazy. Now, before I let you go, and I've taken up a lot of your time, I really appreciate it, Andy.
No problem, man. Yeah, a pleasure to be on, Tyson.
That was great. Do you ever go out and play solo live now? Or is it strictly doing Coney Hatch gigs?
At the moment, It's just Coney Hatch stuff. I have to tell you, pre-COVID, I 100% had plans to put my. I was talking to Glenn Milcham, who played on the No Tattoos record, and Glenn sounded like he was up for doing some shows. I wanted Simon to come back, but Simon's really super busy, sought after laser pyrotechnic touring guy. So, but you know, when you go to my website, it says has base will travel, and I had planned on going out and doing some kind of a 20th anniversary tour of Nickels and Dimes and No Tattoos and that whole thing, and maybe throw in some Drug Plan and Leisure World and a bit of Soho. So no, and my wife has been telling me, Andy, like you got to go out and do some shows with your solo band. But it's ironic, you know, despite the success that I had on my own with the Juno Award or getting the deal with Geffen and these subsequent deals in the US, when I think people know me most from Coney Hatch. So it's weird that I keep going to put the old tennis sneakers back on with the old band, you know?
Yeah. No, I would be there. I've never seen you live. I haven't seen Coney Hatch either, for that matter, which is crazy that you guys, you know, like you guys have been playing forever. And
yeah, no, I definitely plan on doing it. And I spoke with Sean Kelly about it. And Sean is currently playing guitar with Coney Hatch. And he was like, dude, in a heartbeat, I'm there with you. So I kind of have, I've got Glenn Milcham saying the yes, and he's currently in Blue Rodeo. So I got to kind of figure out when Glenn's not playing in Blue Rodeo. But I've got the makings of my solo band that have, you know, I need one more guy in the band or girl.
That's cool. Well, I look forward to that. Hopefully we'll be through this soon. Actually, I got my vaccination yesterday, so I'm
good man.
I am happy about that. So
yeah, I got mine too. It gives you a little bit of confidence, and I'm positive we'll get through this one day, buddy. And I look forward to seeing it at a show. And I appreciate you bringing me back on for part 2, and I'm glad you got my check in the mail for letting me come on for you.
I did. Good. Yes, I haven't spent it yet, but I got it.
and always love talking hockey, and that collector's box that you showed me is kick ass.
Oh man, it's been sitting in my closet, but I've always hung on to it, right? It was just one of those things that I would never get rid of. I will pass that on to my kids.
I jokingly say to some of my friends, you know, hockey, rock and roll, cars, and women. What else is there left?
That's right. Exactly. So true.
That's about it, man.
That is it. That is
food. Okay, food. There's food.
Oh yeah, don't forget food. We can't. We have to have food to survive, right? So.
Yeah. No, it's been an absolute pleasure, Tyson. Thank you for having me on, buddy. And your questions were great, and I wish you success with the show, bro.
Thanks, Andy. You have a great night.
You too, man.
Okay,
take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
She didn't even notice, didn't even care, but she knew damn well I was standing there. I heard a knock on the door, it was loud and clear. I thought maybe someday you just disappear. So call it playing possum or just plain dead. It's gonna take a while to clear my aching head. Tell me one thing I've been thinking of. Who gave you a license to love? Some people lie,